So this week we're going to have a learning experience. I think there might be another phrase that would describe this, but I'll abstain from saying it. Basically, every Legacy event I go to, I'm like, oh, I could never play Miracles. This deck is too demanding, hard, narrow, doesn't beat certain things, blah blah blah, and then I just get crushed by it over and over. So I figured it's time I've learned from my mistakes and actually learn this deck and learn when it's good and when it should be played and why I should not keep disrespecting it. So I started with this is yeah, okay, just double checking I had the person right. It's Philip Schoeniger's list. He had an article about this deck and the GP and just traveling on Star City, and I kind of came to the conclusion that if you are going to fly across an ocean to play in a GP and you spike it and you spike the previous one, you probably know what you're doing. So I would start with this list, especially because the meta I don't think has evolved too far from there. I mean, there's Storm, but it's not like this deck's bad against Storm in terms of Storm can beat this deck, but that's a different. We'll get to that point later, but it's not bad against it by any means. So, just going over the basics of the specific main deck. There's 4 Ponder, which I really like because you're digging for a lot of specific cards. Because really, this deck doesn't have a lot of card advantage. Even with Dig, you can get out carded by crews. So really, what you're trying to do is establish either Counterbalance or Jace as this sort of lock. Or play a game where Terminus is backbreaking and takes out a bunch of cards. But you really need to ponder into your top or your counterbalance or your set things up to. You're really just a showdown deck, I guess, like a traditional blue showdown deck. So it's not too much special that I really feel like I can comment on the main. The one thing I've noticed from the couple warm-up matches I've played is that I really like the idea of the Red Blast because countering Treasure Cruise is actually pretty important. Because again, you can get out-carded. As for the board, I like a bunch of counter spells. There's a bunch of dead cards. I did kind of notice that it lines up pretty well to board in all of these cards for all of your removal. And then a little bit more, so like some of the clunkier cards like Jace or whatever. But the card I'm not quite sure on is Containment Priest. The reason being that I think that I guess Containment Priest might be the best card in Show and Tell and Reanimator by a large margin. But it kind of feels weird that you don't really want it against Elves because Terminus is so good there, and the overlap is really kind of awkward. Maybe it's not awkward. Maybe Containment Priest does enough work on its own, like holding off 1/1s and letting a Jace get established. But it just feels weird that overlaps there, and I kind of wanted to play Humility or something instead, but I figured I would go with the expert's opinion on that. And I don't actually believe my opinion to even be it's just based on looking at things without any games played. Yeah, overall, the thing I've kind of noticed from the warm-up matches is that a lot of people are like, yeah, you got to be patient, but I think there's this window that definitely closes at some point against specific decks that you have to actually sneak into, specifically mid-range decks. I think that's probably the trickiest part of playing the deck and what I'm looking forward to figuring out.